Hello. Hello, kitties. Hello, kit. Welcome back, Rodketeers. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Welcome back to Sentimental Elephants, a musical journey where I go through the alphabet and select an artist for each letter and discuss my personal journey through their music, how I discovered them, and the influence and effect that their music has had on my life. We are now up to L. Now, L, in this case, L is no, not for loser. No, none of that. No. L is for love. We love L here. And L is for love. Not just for the emotion love, but also for the band Love. The fine Los Angeles band from the 1960s. Forever Changes, a classic album. L is also for Led Zeppelin. Bit of a surprise that I'm not doing Led Zeppelin here. But they do loom large in my legend. I'm sure I'm going to come back to them at some point. L is also for the great John Lennon, also Gordon Lightfoot. Led Zeppelin, John Lennon, Gordon Lightfoot. This video will be on none of those three artists. Sorry, Jeff. But there's a lot of great bands, many of whom I've seen live, a lot of great artists I've seen live. I've seen live, the band Live. Also, The Levelers, great British folk rock band. I've gotten to see them a couple of times. Little Feat, one of my absolute favorite bands, was very lucky to see them. Daniel Lanois, the great Canadian producer and musician in his own right. I got to see him this past summer, joining up with Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. Lo-Fi Resistance, not a famous band, but they were open for Marillion at one of their Marillion weekends. I got to see them. I greatly enjoyed them. Let's see here, who else? Lost and Profound, also a fine Canadian band. Some may remember them for the song "Brand New Set of Lies" that they had in the 1990s, and I got to see them at least once. I do have their first two albums, and they're both excellent. L's also for the Lemonheads. Never got to see the Lemonheads live, but I have met one Lemonhead. I've mentioned that, I think, in one of the previous ones, how I met Juliana Hatfield, who is a wonderful artist, an absolute sweetheart of a person. Let's see who else. Longfin Killy are a band, very obscure, but they had a few albums that were really intriguing, and I got to know them because Mark E. Smith of The Fall appeared on a song that they did. So, obscure, but check them out if you like kind of left field music. Let's see who else. Len, Ottawa band, one hit wonders, as they're known. If You Steal My Sunshine, it was a great song. Actually, that album's kind of fun, but gotta represent our Ottawa bands. Lisa Loeb, wonderful singer songwriter. Always have a weakness for beautiful woman with glasses, but she's fine singer and wrote some great songs. Most people know her for her first album, but the second album, Firecracker, is really, really good. Los Lobos, just another band from East LA. What can I say? I need to listen to more of them, but I've loved everything I've heard from them. Mark Lanigan, the late great Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees, who had many excellent solo albums. Also another fine musician who's no longer with us, Ronnie Lane from The Faces. You can check out any of his solo work. It's really, really good. The Laws, kind of known as a one-hit wonder, but for There She Goes, which is a great song. But basically, it's like they made their first album, but their lead singer just kind of withdrew a bit. But their self-titled album is it's a classic. There's some fine songs on there. What else is there? Laws. Recently getting to Ray LaMontagne, relatively recently. Was a wonderful singer-songwriter. Still discovering his work, but I'm hoping to get deeper into it. And I guess the last person left before I get to the main event is Tom Lehrer, the great American satirist. Was raised on his comedic songs. The man wrote "Poisoning Pigeons in the Park" and other great things like that. a number of songs that I can sing from heart, but I'm not going to do that right now because we're going to go on to the featured artist of this letter. L is for Lynyrd Skynyrd. Play some Skynyrd. Yeah. Freebird. Okay, I got that one out of the way early. So, okay. I'll just give you a little bit of the history. It's nothing you can't look up, and I'm sure some of you are more or less familiar with it, but I'll go into it anyways. Yeah, they were formed in the 60s. The name was partly taken from the band's, or the physical education teacher, Lynyrd Skynyrd, who kind of was a bit of a devil to them in their high school years. But they formed in Jacksonville, Florida. First album came out in 1973, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd, or pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. It was like helpful if you didn't know how to say their name. The core lineups. There's a couple of different, a few different changes during that first run, but sort of the main lineup would be on drums initially Bob Burns and then Artemis Pyle. Bass was Leon Wilkeson. Lead singer was Ronnie Van Zant, and they had kind of one of the bands that really codified the idea of a 3-guitar lineup. The original 3-guitar lineup was Gary Rosington, Alan Collins, and Ed King. And then Ed King left the band, and a bit later they brought in, they went with just Collins and Rosington for a bit after that, and then they brought in Steve Gaines from Oklahoma for the last part of their original run. Put out several classic albums. Second Helping is an amazing album. That's the one with Sweet Home Alabama on it. And then kind of one of the main things that people know about them, if you're not a fan, they had some, first I'll just say they had fierce live shows, just fiery. And then the thing, again, a lot of people know about them, which is the 1977 plane crash, which put an end to the band for quite some time. It was 3 of the members of the band lost their lives. Ronnie Van Zant, their lead singer, Steve Gaines, who was their lead guitar player, and Steve's sister, Cassie Gaines, who was one of their backing vocalists. Also, the band's assistant tour manager, Dean Kilpatrick, who was kind of one of the kind of brothers of the band. He was sort of very much part of their sort of family, and he passed as well from the plane crash, and that put an end to the band for a number of years. They did come back I'm not sure if it was by the end of the 70s, it might have been the early 80s, but there was a group called the Rosington Collins Band based around Gary Rosington and Alan Collins, and they kept going for a bit, but some internal tensions kind of pulled them apart. Sadly, Alan Collins was in an automobile accident, and he was in a wheelchair for the last years of his life. And then by the end of the 80s, he passed from pneumonia. So it was a member of the band gone. But in the late 80s, there was a reunion. It was originally just a tribute tour. They brought in Johnny Van Zant, the youngest brother of Ronnie Van Zant, to be their lead singer. Side note, I believe it's Donnie Van Zant is another one of the brothers. He's the lead singer of the band 38 Special. But Johnny Van Zant, and they've kept going, and they're still going in some form today. Now, there has been a fair amount of attrition, sadly. Sorry, it's kind of a cold way to say that. A number of the past members have gone. They've died since then as well. With recent passing of Gary Rosington, he was the last original member of the band, still in the band. So right now, I believe they do still intend to tour, although I thought that the last tour was their farewell tour, but it's just Johnny Van Zant and kind of sort of long-term association connection, and Ricky Medlock on guitar. Now, he was a member of the group Blackfoot, and he's been a guitar player for the current lineup, the reunion lineup, for quite some years. He actually does have a past connection with the band. He played on some early sessions. He's actually played on drums, but yeah, I believe the state band is still going in some format right now. Now, why Lynyrd Skynyrd over these various other bands that are artists as well that I love? Why am I talking about them today? Because they're an example of something I will frequently say, which is that the foundation of my musical tastes is bands that I used to hate. It's a bit strong, and it's not all of it, but there's a lot of bands that are just kind of core, or artists that are just deep in my soul, that my first reaction was not a positive one. Perhaps hate would be a little bit strong with regards to Lynyrd Skynyrd, but it was kind of indifference bordering on antipathy. I was, for a long period, it's like, no, just keep them away from me. The one song that I really knew was Sweet Home Alabama. At the time, I wasn't really impressed by it. We'll come back to that a bit later. Another factor is that in my early 20s, I was in a band, and I was in a band with my younger sister's boyfriend, as he was at the time. He's now her husband, my brother-in-law. He's also in another band now called Class of 91. If you get a chance to see them live in Ottawa, please do so. He's a great musician, and both my sister and my brother-in-law are great, cool people with excellent musical tastes. However, they went to a high school, which I gather was just kind of Southern rock to death, and it was just kind of pushed down them, and that was not really their thing. And it's like kind of contrary, maybe just being a bit contrarian, or just just didn't like it. But it's like they didn't. Lynyrd Skynyrd was not a band that they thought well of, and I kind of was following their lead a little bit. But I had my own sort of taste at the time, and didn't care for it on my own. So it's like, okay, this is a band I don't need to think of at all. In my late 20s, I met a woman who wound up becoming later my wife, and now my ex-wife. She had been in a band called Street Survivors, which for those name kind of gives it away, was a Lynyrd Skynyrd tribute band. So we kind of had a little bit of a agree to disagree on that one. I'll give her absolute full credit on this, that she never really pushed that on me, but I knew she was a fan. And so what changed? Well, there's a few different things. There was a particular song that wound up catching my interest, and also a little bit was like I didn't really want to I wanted to appreciate the same things that she did. So it was a little part, and not that she was forcing it, but it's like, okay, I kind of wanted to see things her way a little bit with regards to them. And the song was A Simple Man. Now, I may have mentioned before, I'm a big fan of Government Mule, and I had recording one of their live shows where they performed Simple Man live. Now, this was after the passing of their bass player, Alan Woody, who, before he was in Government Mule, and it was a tribute. Yes, it was the tribute concert to Alan Woody. Before he was in Government Mule, and before he was in the Allman Brothers Band, he had been in Artemis Pyle's band. Artemis Pyle had been drummer for Lynyrd Skynyrd. Artemis Pyle is actually one of the few, the only person left from that original run. And sadly, at this point, they've all gone except for Artemis Pyle. He's not with the band, but he's still around. He's still performing, as well as Leslie Hawkins. I believe Leslie Hawkins, it was her name, one of the backing vocalists. But everybody from that original lineup is gone. Every from that whole run is gone at this point. Anyway, he actually played on the tribute concert on the song Simple Man. I thought, wow, this is a gorgeous song. And I had heard it before because my now ex-wife did give me as a gift the soundtrack to the movie Almost Famous, and that song appears on it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful song, very powerful. It's one of my favorite of their songs. I love singing along with it. Angelina Hunter Trio, don't know if you can see this. They will be playing a show in Ottawa uh, about a week. I believe it's the 29th at the Overflow Brewery because they've got an album release. Anyway, they cover that song live. That's why I'm bringing that. Love you guys all. Anyway, had to work in another reference to them because they're amazing. But yeah, they cover that. It's very beautiful. It's moving. It's a wonderful set of lyrics to it. And I was like, wow, this is a great song, and couldn't deny it. And so it's like, okay, maybe I do need to reassess this band. Maybe I need to give them another shot. I wound up getting a 2-disc compilation because that's what I did back in the days, folks, and that's what I still do. I still buy CDs as a 2-disc compilation, and I was explored it and say, okay, yeah, there's a bunch of really good songs in here. And one song that really captivated me was one called "Was I Right or Wrong?" I thought the lyrics to this was very moving. It's like somebody who was always told by their father they were never going to amount to anything, and out of just sheer bloody mindedness, just went off and made a big success of themselves, and they kind of came back to just sort of to throw it, maybe throw it in the face of their parents, and coming back and finding their parents are now gone. They passed away, and it's like they're just wondering, it's like, okay, what was it worth it? It's like I what I gained, was it worth what I lost? And it's an incredible song. It's not one of their big famous ones, but it's very, very good. Which is one thing I wanted to touch on. Ask most people if they're not fans of the band, just what do you know about Lynyrd Skynyrd? It's like, well, Sweet Home Alabama. It's like, well, no Freebird. Anything else? No. Well, there's more to them. There's much more to them than that. But I do want to actually touch on those two songs. Sweet Home Alabama, most famous song. As I said, initially didn't impress me. Actually, now I love it. It's a really fun song. It's great. It's the lyrics are on point. It comes from, and maybe one of those reasons I kind of like had a little bit of resistance to it is I'm a Neil Young fan, and among the reasons why the song was written, because Neil Young had recorded and released a couple of songs, Alabama and Southern Man, and they're kind of sort of saying, kind of pointing the finger at the South for the culture of the time, for racism. And members of Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I did this as kind of a response to that. So I just said, well, I'm going to stick up for my guy Neil Young. But they actually did have kind of a point, as Ronnie Van Zant did say, hey, I'm a Neil Young fan. As he very famously on the Street Survivor album cover, he's wearing a Neil Young T-shirt, but he said, there's another side to the story, and they want to tell it. When they had the lyric, I hope Neil Young will remember a Southern man, don't need him around anyhow, and that's you just want to sort of like little poking, little fun at it. It was good natured, but it's actually a great song. It's funny and it's well constructed. It's great to sing along with. The other song, Freebird, I tell you this, I've actually performed that live. I took it, as I said when I did do that, I said it's famous for being one of the longest songs in rock and roll, and I made it one of the shortest because I just sang the lyrics, and there's not a lot of lyrics to it, but it's a very beautiful poetic lyric. And I think it's become a little bit synonymous with overindulgent long solos. Although it's not really solos, it's like kind of a guitar duel or truel. I don't know. It was three guitarists kind of throwing down. I actually quite enjoy it. It's got a great energy to it, particularly in the live version. It's just kind of like a runaway train. I think it's a lot of fun. That said, as Em was mentioning before, they have many other great songs, and part of it, maybe just my own little prejudice against Southern rock. Oh, it's just a bunch of dumb songs about drinking and then hell raising. Sure, there's some songs about drinking and hell raising too, but there are other songs too. Really did want to mention this is Ronnie Van Zant was a great lyricist. I've completely fall in love with his lyrics. He's like a working class poet, like Springsteen or Steve Earle. Just wondering, has a wonderful, not overblown, but just beautiful turn of phrase in a lot of his lyrics. Some of them are very witty. Um, Many of them are very moving, and some can be really kind of incisive and cutting. Give me three steps. Not give me. Give me three steps is it was a hilarious song. It's like, yeah, it kind of turns things on its head. It's not about him saying what a badass he is. He's saying about how he's like, you know, telling the story of him out at a bar, and he's just dancing with a woman, and all of a sudden her boyfriend or husband shows up pointing a gun at him, and he's just panicking and going into sheer cowardice. And it's a really very funny song, and it's a real hoot to listen to it. He did they wrote a song called Saturday Night Special, which is kind of taking a shot at sort of gun culture. It's a little bit more nuanced than just on the surface of it, but that's it's not the sort of song that you'd expect from a southern band. They have three songs that are some of the great rants against the music industry. Those being "Give Me Back My Bullets," "Working for MCA," and "Cry for the Bad Man." Just the sheer ferocity of the singing in that, just really right tight and just biting, and it's great stuff. A couple of songs kind of looking at, well, actually a few, I just remembered a third one here. Songs kind of like taking a dim look at drug use. Junkie being one, Needle in the Spoon, and notably a song called That Smell. Now, they have a song called That Smell. That's not the most appealing song title in the world, but that was actually them, Ronnie Van Zant kind of taking the finger and pointing it inwards at the band, because he was looking at some of the band members' behavior and kind of just saying there's not going to be a good end to it. The smell of death is around you, and some of the band were kind of going off the rails, getting into accidents, and you're saying is you gotta shape up your act, and unfortunately it didn't really take hold, but of some of the members, some of them developed problems that they found tough to shake. But it's still an incredible song, great dark song, amazing guitar solo towards the end by Steve Gaines. And the Battle of Curtis Lowe, which I was mentioning Ricky Medlock before. Is it Ricky or Richie? I've never been sure. But Curtis Lowe was actually based on his own father, Shorty Medlock. But just talking about an old man who's a great blues player and a great singer, kind of how they're kind of like looking up to this guy. Also, Tuesday's Gone. I got to mention that. I remember one day it was actually Tuesday, and I was sitting. That was when I was working from home. I'm still working from home. But I think it was early days, and I'm sitting in my living room getting ready to go, and there's a car winds up stopping outside. I live by a stoplight, and it stops, and it was on a Tuesday, and it was his radio was playing, or his music was playing, or his or her, whoever, and the song was "Tuesday's Gone," and so I'm singing along, so it's a great song. And after it leaves, I was thinking, it's 6 a.m. What do you mean Tuesday's gone? But the second time, as mentioned, I've seen Lynyrd Skynyrd twice, or I might have mentioned that. I've seen them twice. Anyway, I've seen them live twice in the reunion lineup. And the second time I saw them wound up being on a Tuesday. And I said, if they don't play Tuesdays long, I'm going to riot. There's going to be a one-person riot. They played Tuesday's Gone, so order was maintained. But it's an amazing, beautiful song. I mentioned Ronnie Van Zant, but all of their guitar players, even in the reunion lineup, have been amazing. Guy I want to single out, though, is Steve Gaines. It's a real tragedy. He died so young in the plane crash. He wasn't in the band for that long. I think it may have been about a year. I only had two albums to his credit. One was the live album, whose name I'm forgetting. Uh, oh, One More from the Road. Yes, One More from the Road, great live album, and their last album, Street Survivor, uh, contributed some cool songs. I Know a Little, I believe, was either he wrote it or was a co-write. You Got That Right was another one, and just amazing style. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Jimmy Herring. Just great kind of flat picking style, kind of J.J. Cale. I'm not a guitar player. Sorry if I'm using wrong terminology, but hugely gifted musician taken from us far, far too young. Way too much untapped potential there. Now, there's a certain amount of baggage that comes with Lynyrd Skynyrd. Part of it can kind of come from some people's perceptions, and sometimes, certain in the reunion era, sometimes it maybe a bit pander a bit more to sort of the I don't know quite what I'm saying here, but a big part of it was their use of the Confederate flag as part of their stage imagery, and they kept that going for a while, and they were going to stop doing it, and then some fans said, "No, no, no, we are." I don't know this, but some fans protested, and they kept using it until 2019, which is, I think, way too late. But they have stopped using that imagery. I think you're aware of some of the baggage. I don't want to sort of step on too many toes here because I have my own kind of little sheltered existence here. I don't want to comment on people's viewpoints and lives. I've got my own prejudices. But I just really want to say I had a prejudice for a long time against this band. And I had to kind of open up my eyes and viewing with fresh eyes, open up my ears. I said there's no original members left in the band. They are still touring, and I did get to see them live twice. I was just say with these folks, if you maybe are like me and sort of like I used to be, and just thought, okay, they're just these two songs, and they're just there's no depth to it, and I was like, give them a chance. I think you might find a little surprise if there's a wealth of really good music to be found with them. Yeah. So I'm just gonna wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us on the musical journey. We're coming back next time with letter M, and until next time, tearing it up.